Hello, everyone. I'm ContestTheWrestling.com. Joined tonight by John Clark to talk all about Monday Night Raw on a Monday. John, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing all right. I may sound flat. I don't mean to, but Raw tonight, folks. I knew 10 minutes in, I'm like, it's gonna be a long show, and it's a long show no matter what. Obviously, it's a 3 hour show, and it usually feels long anyway. I mean, one of those shows where it feels extraordinarily long based on the stuff that we see on the show itself, and at least for myself, I think I turned out to be right. I just was not feeling it right off the bat. We had Becky Lynch coming out. John, you know what she said? Well, first off, she said that the Royal Rumble was 2 weeks away. And that threw me for a loop because I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it is. And then I thought, well, I don't feel the excitement that you would want for Rumble time. Like, Rumble is supposed to be one of the most exciting, uh, probably, I would say, kind of maybe the second biggest show of the year. And it just doesn't really feel like it right now. Granted, they still have about 2 weeks, 2 weeks from Saturday. I think it's 1 week from Saturday. So the rest of this week, one more Raw next week. And they've based most of the excitement around the surprise announcements, which they already gave away. So there's no we saw Lita on SmackDown, so Raw hasn't really benefited from that, at least not yet. Um, so there's that. And then Becky said the Raw Women's Division has never been hotter. And that took me even further out of the segment because I said, well, friend, that is objectively not true. Like, the coming out of Becky's feud with Liv Morgan, and now she's facing Doudrop. And like the Doudrop stuff is fine, but it's not the hottest it's ever been. Even in my time watching this show since I got back into wrestling in the very end of 2018 or 2019, there have been better days. This ain't it. So having stuff like that. Obviously, if she's doing her job, she's trying to hype it up, and I can respect that. But I don't know. Then we had of course we had Doudrop come out, and she was like, "Oh, you didn't give me this opportunity," even though Becky did. She literally helped her win the match last week. And then, of course, as previously announced shortly before the show, we had the weekly "Can They Coexist" challenge of Becky and Doudrop teaming up to face Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair. Only after Liv and Bianca Belair both announced they'll be entering the Women's Royal Rumble. And John, of course they are. Who wouldn't? Like what this? People should have to qualify for the Royal Rumble because if you don't, like, who wouldn't say they're going to enter the match? That is your golden ticket in the chocolate factory world to WrestleMania. Like, if you're on the roster, if you're not a champion and if you're not challenging for a title, even if you are, you're probably going to be in the match. So like, and then so both of them coming out being like, oh hey, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble match. It seems silly to me. It's what they do. It's fine. And that's just pointing out, yes, coexisting is what they do nowadays. I understand that. I don't have to like it. I'm so tired of it. It's just so boring because it's like a choose your own adventure. Either they coexist and barely coexist. They somehow get along and win, or they fail and they lose, and then the result's pretty much the same. So either way, all things being equal here, kind of lumped together. Not a great start to the show. We can talk about the match itself, but John, kind of just in a more general sense here, starting off tonight with Doudrop, Becky, the tag match, the women's division in general. What do you think about the opener to Raw here?
I think there's a lot of moving parts. They're probably still trying to get their ducks in a row with exactly where they want to take this in the long run. I think it's pretty safe to say at this point they know that Becky will be keeping the title at least until that show, but the other end of the spectrum is the question mark because there are so many potential challengers or stories that would make sense. There's a comment from Timmy saying that he wants Rowan to come back. I'm not saying that's going to happen because it probably won't, but that is probably like the top option they would have because this goes back literally what it would go back 3 years, which is the last time that Ronda was actually in WWE was when she lost that title to Becky that night. She literally hasn't been back since that night,
Nope.
and that would just make sense to come full circle. She comes back, and of course, then she's still the champion. So, um, that would be the top option. And then, um, I've seen people with their takes on Liv Morgan and possibly winning, and I see DJ commenting there and saying, Liv to win. No, that's not in the cards. That's not gonna happen. She's gonna
Mm-mm.
be like that. I don't even know the male counterpart to compare to, but that she keeps coming so close and then not winning. And I don't even think she's gonna come close, honestly, to winning the Rumble. Now, of course, Brian Everett gives an interesting perspective on winning Bianca Belair back into the picture, because who would have thought that so confidently and so easily somebody could be the favorite again. And now I don't remember from a year ago if she was the favorite last year. I
They
don't
made
think
it
she
pretty
was.
clear. Maybe not as obvious as other other Royal Rumble winners, but like you had a feeling like among some of the other possibilities, like there seemed to be. If I remember correctly, obviously
Yeah,
hindsight's 2020, but I
but
feel like that was kind of the thing where it was like you could probably make that safe prediction, and it feels
when
that way again this year, maybe even more so because we did see it
yeah,
last year.
I was
I
gonna
could see
say when
that.
it comes to this year, I think it's even more overwhelmingly obvious. However, there are also additional comments here from Nesha and Thomas, and there was somebody else I saw above about Bailey. And I still think that if she is healthy, she is going to return. She is going to win, and she absolutely deserves to win, because let's not forget, she was the female superstar that carried the company through COVID, and then fans return at Money in the Bank in July, and like literally a week before that she like has this horrible knee injury and she's been gone ever since. So without a doubt, I think she deserves to come back and win. And then of course Stephen Chambers bringing up Asuka again. We haven't seen Asuka since her arm injury. I don't
Been
even
a
know how long
while.
ago
It's
that
been.
was.
I think I said last week it
Um,
was almost 200 days at that point. So
now Asuka, like Bianca Belair, has won the women's Royal Rumble before. There's been three to this point, right? Asuka
that
won.
sounds right. Yeah.
Oscar won, Bianca Belair won, and did Becky win? I think in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
came out and like
Yeah.
took over Nia Jax or
That's
something.
right.
But
That's right.
yeah,
Classic.
so to have a repeat winner this early is somewhat unheard of, but I can say that it's would be predictable, I think. But yeah,
Yeah, I just want something. I can't even say different because obviously Doudrop and Becky's different, so like I can't complain with that. Again, more so, I had some problems with the way that was kind of set up tonight, and the fact that it's the same usual stuff of coexisting and everything. They do have options in a way. Like I saw one comments earlier saying that they have a lot of options. It could be Becky versus anybody from Steve Chambers earlier. And then my gut reaction was like, do they really have a lot of options? And I think they have a couple strong options. I mean, I think they have any number of other options generally, but I would say they have a couple strong options. I mean, at this point, I think Asuka makes sense because they do have history there. Asuka was kind of like Becky's kryptonite for a while, where like Becky couldn't beat her, and there's obviously the history of Becky giving her title to Asuka and everything there. Becky and Bailey could be another one. That's one we're seeing a bunch of Vanessa again chiming in there. I would like to see that. I think again, I would probably call Bailey my favorite at this point. Got a comment earlier asking about Lita. Obviously, I said a minute ago, we did see Lita on SmackDown. With Michael Covington going as far to say that Lita's gonna win, it'll be like nostalgia, like we saw with Edge. I mean, we saw. I think it was just Friday that she has been cleared. That she has not been on like the no contact list for I think about. She's not been listed as that for at least like 4 years now. So she's seemingly good to go. She did the twist fade on SmackDown. They're teasing. She said she wants one more run. Now that could be a misdirection, but they're at least kind of paving or planting those seeds.
well,
Um,
the thing for me is I think there's something to be said about them doing this story without her needing to win the Rumble. I think they could go this direction regardless and have the Raw side kind of win the Rumble match. Now, of course, there could have been a curveball thrown after the news about Sasha Banks being hurt. Maybe she was the original plan and they had to change the plan. But I think there's something to be said with her kind of. And let's not talk about the bump that Charlotte took that was pretty bad there on SmackDown
that
from
was
Lita.
rough.
But I still think that it's an interesting match. She was the one that I think wasn't it Charlotte that wrestled Trish at SummerSlam?
That's correct. Yeah, that
So
was
now it's almost like,
2019.
yeah, almost like now going to like that next person in line, and I think there's something to be said about doing that.
Yeah, I just think if they want to go there, it would make more sense on paper to have the Royal Rumble like be the reason she gets a title match. Like she would earn it, but then I'm sure they could get there anyway. Richard's asking why they would kind of tease this with Lita winning if she doesn't actually win. I mean, I think the Royal Rumble match is best when you have a couple people who could believably win when you enter it. Whereas 2020, everybody knew Drew McIntyre was going to win. Like there was pretty much no doubt. Last year, maybe less so. You don't want to be totally obvious. You don't want, because that takes the fun out of it. You want some unpredictability there. Steven saying whoever eliminates Charlotte will face her at WrestleMania. I think that's fair. They could have Lita eliminate her but not win and set that up, and then whoever wins on Raw does that. Again, I like the option of Bayley. Bayley's show after show we do here. Bayley is one of the favorites here. That's just saying if Bayley does return, then it could be Lita. She'll face Charlotte. Again, as we've seen in the men's division, Michael's saying now Charlotte could still win. As I said, I think last week, that'd be one of my solid predictions. Like that's something that we could see, that she'll win and maybe even unify the titles. It's possible. I don't know. But there definitely are a couple of options. We got a couple of options about Alexa Bliss. And with that in mind, we might as well just jump around a little bit with about the question, like, what about Thomas saying, what about Little Miss Bliss? Well, Thomas, we saw Little Miss Bliss tonight in the second consecutive segment of her kind of journey back to Raw in a therapy segment. And this one, I think, was even shorter than the last one. Not really much to note, other than the fact that she repeatedly said Lily. She was asked about Lily's doll, and or she was like, it was a word association game. She said like it was like doll and friend and home and trust, and very clearly, reminding us or reestablishing, I guess, the bond that Lily and Bliss have. Even though last time we saw Lily, she was being violently destroyed by Charlotte Flair, and ironically, that would be an option for something for Charlotte, where it's like, that's something they could circle back to. Not that I don't know if a lot of people would want to see that. Like that was kind of done, but I mean, there's a solid revenge story there where she destroyed Lily and whatever. Brian noted that he wishes they would go back to Bliss's old persona. I initially thought this whole point would be to like change Alexa, do something different. This is very much the same Alexa that we saw once she left. And again, I said it last week, and maybe even when they first announced this, I think maybe there's it's about the journey that we are going to get to a different Bliss. But with the second week in a row here of the same Bliss, I'm less hopeful of that. But this one was a pretty short segment, not too much to really note, other than just kind of reminding us about Lily, reestablishing her in context, I guess. But John, do you have any thoughts about Alexa here on her second chapter of her journey back?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot. It was kind of just repetitive from last week with a little bit of I guess, a trap. He was trying to trap her into, obviously with the imaginary line there, and then, so we'll see where it goes. But I like you, do not think it's going to go anywhere too off the tracks from what we've been seeing already in the past couple months.
Yeah, Nestor points out the change could be in time. It could be, more often than not, though, these days especially. I don't necessarily see. I don't know. I hate to say I'm becoming skeptical. Just like at this point, I feel like more often than not, WWE at least kind of like makes it pretty clear where they're going to go or something. We haven't really seen any kind of hint that she's going to change at all. She's very much, it's just been the same Bliss. And the doctors noted that she's like, I guess, rejuvenated, but now they're trying to kind of work on her more mentally and make sure she's kind of like rehabilitated, I guess, being the difference there. What she got, so I don't know, but I'm hopeful because I want the best for Alexa Bliss's character here. And I think that she could be great. That's just saying, we gotta have faith. I'm trying. All right, I'm trying. Raw just beats it out of me, but I'm trying. I'm hopeful. I think if Alexa makes talented as she is, I think that she could. She's doing her best to make the most of it. I think she could do even better than this in terms of what she's being handled. Got a couple of comments dating back to the Rumble here. Laura and Jeremy asking about Paige. Obviously, former Divas champion Paige forced to retire years ago. And obviously, it feels like every Rumble these days, there's some speculation. Is Paige going to return? She's teased it before. She has made it clear she's trying to come back. I haven't heard anything about whether she's cleared or not. I mean, we know that Sean Ross Sapp reported that Lita was cleared. Lita was cleared. Paige, I've not heard anything along those lines, other than just kind of vague teases and her kind of maybe playing with the fans a little bit.
This is the first time in, I'll say, about 8 to 9 years that we don't have to speculate about CM Punk being in the Royal Rumble. It's like a first. I'm not used to this.
I mean, while you bring it up, I think we talked about it last week. All the talk about the Forbidden Doors and WWE working with other promotions, and then some people being like, oh, maybe they'll do the unthinkable and work with AW, and I thought for a second they could bring in Chris Jericho, because obviously the history there. Grain of salt, but there were reports this weekend or maybe even today that it's not going to be AW. There's not going to be any kind of crossover like that, and beyond any kind of wild speculation that I may have had at first, I was like, I realistically knew that would just be too crazy. That we could have somebody else, from somewhere else, I don't know. But obviously today, the talk of the town has been Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes of Sean Rossap reported obviously today that Cody Rhodes of AEW is a free agent, the reigning TNT champion. So that's been the talk of the town. A lot of people wondering, could Cody Rhodes show up in the Rumble? No, I don't see it. He just wouldn't. I'm not speaking for him. Obviously, I don't know. Anybody could do anything at any time, but this is a company that made him Stardust. So I don't think he's coming back. And in a world where he's a free agent, he could do what he wants. Could he resign with WWE? Yes. Would he? Why? The guy helped build his own company. He could leave. But why go back to a place that you're kind of just watching change into some place that you may not want to go? And that's just saying the news about Cody was a surprise. I didn't see that coming in general. I don't see him returning. I don't see it. It'd be cool in a way. Obviously, I grew up. Cody Rhodes was in WWE. He was doing good things. I don't see it. The wrestling world's a wild, wonderful, unpredictable place. That one for me is a step too far. I don't know if you disagree, John, but that's just too crazy to me. I can't see it.
Yeah, I can't see it. I doubt it's gonna happen. I would be all for it, and I would think that it would be awesome, though. Now, of course, I'm biased, so that's why I'm saying that. But I think it would be like a middle finger, or like a I don't even know. I just think it would shift the world a little bit, like it did a couple years ago, when, of course. But I mean, it would make sense in a way, because it's really his home. That's where he grew up. That's where his. I mean, we got the tournament coming up in NXT. I mean, that makes sense.
But John, there's so many moving parts. You've got
the
TBS
care.
shows, all this other stuff.
It's where he belongs. Enough with this other crap. Take him back home. No, it won't happen, of course. I think he's working everybody. I think there's often times where Fightful and just not
wrestling
just them,
news
but
in general, yeah.
The media in general releases news that kind of stirs the pot. It's factual, of course, but it still stirs the pot in a way of okay, basically, in a nutshell, okay, what's your point? Okay, he's a free agent, but okay, what's your point? He's not going anywhere, you would think.
That was my gut reaction too, but it is noteworthy. Obviously, he's a champion, and he's an EVP, he's a founder of the company. So it is eye-opening that is the case. Now, speaking of things that probably won't happen, this remains a very popular theory. Something people want to see. DJ saying we could see a Shield reunion. We could see Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley come back to the Rumble. I think that's even more unlikely. I mean, considering all of the circumstances involved there, don't have to get into that one, but Jon Moxley's not coming back. Both, I think, because of him and his feelings, and I don't think WWE would want to come back.
Come on, man.
There.
Come on.
Granted, in a way, I could see it because obviously Rollins reigns. The story's there on paper. If you take out all the BS and stuff, I could see that.
Especially when they literally, I don't know if it was them or somebody, just announced his return match for
GCW.
Mox.
Yeah, that is next
so
Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so he's definitely not going to be there. Now, I thought this whole thing has been a big ploy, a big media stir. Come on, they got Mickey James. Okay, whatever. You're not
cool.
getting You're not getting Moxley. You're not getting CM Punk. You're not getting MJF. Any of those guys. Like,
Lower the
it's
bar,
not
folks. I'm
happening.
sorry.
Like,
I'm sorry.
you're gonna get somebody like Tyler Breeze, Fandango, Mojo Rawley. That's gonna be your big like surprise entrant. It's not gonna be like Kenny Omega. Like, come on.
No.
Expectations are here. Should be
Lower the
here.
bar, folks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's fun to be excited, but I myself, at least, always find it better to just, lower the bar, set the bar low, and then if it's higher than that, if the outcome is higher, then you get to be even more excited and happy. But if you set the bar too high, if you walk into a Rumble and you say, "Oh, hey, we're gonna see," I mean, I thought for a second Chris Jericho could be a possibility. But now I'm like, all right, it's probably going to be like you said.
I don't want to bring back the toaster comment, so let's just move on.
I do want to mention, you mentioned, media and fans going to hop on stuff. I think it was last week. I think it may have been after our show on Monday, maybe even Tuesday, Wednesday. The Corey Graves news about Corey Graves getting cleared. Like, I mean, that's cool, right? But like, I saw that, I was like, all right, like he might be a surprise entrant in the Rumble, like fine. But like everyone was like getting excited about him. Like, I don't really. It's all right if he comes back, cool. If he comes back to the ring, like anything beyond that, cool. But like I barely remember his NXT run because I was, not as passionate a fan of NXT back then. And likewise, the news about the Saudi Arabia show with the Elimination Chamber. It's like, all right, it's whatever. It's the Elimination Chamber. It's the first time it'll be there. It's all right. Like
those graphics were sick, man. I'm digging the green and yellow.
Yeah. Change the colors, made it look a little different. It's just interesting. Obviously, I don't mean it as hypocritical. I was hypocritical. I'm in the line of wrestling news. I write this stuff up. It's my job to report it. But kind of seeing some of the reactions and the buzz around it, it's like I sometimes don't necessarily agree with it. Maybe I'm too jaded for my own good. I don't know. Corey Graves, I mean, yeah, it's cool. I'm not just saying he could be in the Rumble. Yeah, they could do the kind of cool thing of like, oh, he said the announcer's table and his theme plays and enters the ring. Like, that's cool. That could be kind of fun. I just, it's just interesting to me just kind of see how these things unfold. I brought up Corey Graves because I don't think we ought to talk about it last week. Steven Chambers saying maybe we'll see, if he does come back beyond just a brief Rumble thing, maybe he'll get involved with this power couple stuff, the It couple, the Grit couple. He's mentioning they could help Miz and Maurice versus Edge and Beth. Maybe. I know the report was that it was cleared, but I kind of like Beth. I don't know if that means he'll come back just for the Rumble. I don't know if that means he'll come back for anything beyond that. I just don't know. There's just no real way to know at this point. But if he comes back, cool. It'll be kind of a nice fun moment. Dita's asking if we think WWE will play with the crowd with like any kind of fake characters. In the world of social media these days, that I cannot imagine they would do that. They would never hear the end of it. Not that I think they even care that much, but that's a new low. Like if they had like a fake CM Punk or something, like no, they would.
The Saudi show is going on as planned. I see comments about COVID will stop travel plans. No, that's not going to stop travel plans. The show will be on. They wouldn't advertise it a month in advance if they knew there was any shadow of a doubt that they weren't going to be able to go. I'm sure they're probably taking a private charter flight anyway. So like Saudi over there, it's like I don't know if it's better or worse or what, but they probably are like kind of like whatever. Like they want the entertainment. I am like 99.99% sure. I don't know about you, but me, that the show will go on and it will be in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, oh yeah, I would say barring like catastrophe, it is the 17th right now. The show is on February 19th. Yes, things are rough right now. They'll probably be rough for the next couple of weeks, but that hasn't stopped WWE yet. They've literally pressed on actively, despite reported outbreaks within the company itself. So I would say unless things like get exponentially worse in the next couple of weeks.
I mean, we're about to have a full $30,000 people show at the Rumble, a 70,000 people show at WrestleMania. Like I get the concern and everything, but like things have been rough for like 2 years now. Not just 2 months, not just 2 days, but like 2 years. And Of course, things started out shaky. We had the PC for a year and a half or whatever it was. I really find it difficult to believe they're ever going to get back to that point with how not just, I mean, I guess the country, but the world is like kind of treating it more so like the flu and not like its own thing, where now it's just like, okay, you just gotta have a mask on or a vaccine or whatever. But like, I think the times of canceling events because of this are pretty much gone. The only time that would happen, I think, at this point is if enough of the actual performers or competitors had it where they had to.
Yeah. Shout out to DJ here saying, "Hey Colin, just like Veer, the Saudi show will come." Perfect segue, DJ. Thank you, John. Good news. Veer is still coming. We were worried. I think it was like a solid 2 weeks. They took him away from us, so we were left wondering whether he was indeed still coming. But he has not finished coming yet. He's still going to come at some point. Some point he's going to get that wonderful moment. And I was tweeting with someone about it on Twitter, and they said it'll probably come at the Royal Rumble. And I said, hey, that's a good idea. You know, he probably wants to make it a nice special moment. It'll be the climax of a nice, exciting journey. Obviously, he's been coming for a couple weeks now. So once you reach that pinnacle, you're gonna want to make it, meaningful. And where better to come than the Royal Rumble? So I think that's a wonderful thing. And I said before, it's more a reflection of the quality of Raw these days. The fact I literally got so excited when the Veer vignette aired this week, where I was like, oh, thank goodness, yes, like this is still a thing, because it's just so much fun, and all the jokes and people like have a good time with it. Ian, I saw at least some reports that they don't actually have a plan for it. They just know that it's funny. If that's true, fine. It's fun. Like it's harmless to me at this point. That's just joking that it might be coming next year at this point. Keep him coming all year long. Why not? Nonstop. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know. Michael Covenant joking, send Veer. They kind of borrowed from AEW. They were send Hook a little bit. They did that during one of the vignettes. That's not Michael like making a joke. They actually did that at one point. I think they've gone back to just saying that Veer is coming. DJ's asking if I see him as a heel or face. Ironically, or I think that at the very least there will be a section of fans that cheer him because people that have fun with it and like want to kind of make it fun or cheer for him because it's fun. But the vignettes seem like a pretty generic monster heel kind of thing. As basic as they've been, like they've been very limited. Eddie, I never want to make light releases, but it's saying Veer could come in the Rumble and be gone from TV until he's eventually released. I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel that's possible. You can't rely on at this point.
He'll make his debut at the Saudi show in February.
Also possible. Also would be a good place to come. A nice, meaningful place. Again, make it special. Again, it's just a sign of the times that I get this excited. The fact that like this is still a thing. I was looking to joke about it because otherwise we're sitting here, folks. We've been talking about the Rumble. We talk about other stuff. We haven't really been talking about Raw tonight, and there's a reason for that. Like there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, and like the stuff that was like I don't want to like hammer on all the bad stuff and stuff I didn't really care for.
There was just a lot of meaningless stuff. Like, for example, the 4-on-4 tag match that we saw had literally no meaning except at the end when the Mysterios, quote-unquote, eliminated the Street Profits and then Ray threw Dominic over, proving that, you always got to keep your guard out. But I did see this as a foreshadowing because I do think at the Rumble, one of the Mysterios will eliminate the other, which I think will kickstart the feud. But to my point, this was pointless.
It's just silly, John. Like on commentary, they're like, "Oh, there's 8 people in the ring. It's almost like a Royal Rumble match," and they're getting all excited about it. It was like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna see it at the Royal Rumble," and I was like, "Well, yeah, like we've seen every year for the past 30 years. Like that seemed really weird to me, and it wasn't just Jimmy Smith, the new guy. It was Byron and Corey, like people that very much know this is what you see." And the elimination thing was very silly to me. I was like, come on, man. Like, what's the point? They won the match. They successfully coexisted. They were a team. And then Ray dumped him over the Mysterios dumped the Street Profits over the rope. And then Ray, as you said, John, dumped Dominic like, oh, gotta watch your back. Every man for himself. It's like, what did that prove? What did that prove? Why? Now you just look like a jerk of a father. Now imagine that call right home. Like, well, gee, Dad, like, why did you do that? Like, yeah, DJ pointing out, as you said, John, you were predicting that one of them will split. Yeah, I got to think because we saw that. Usually, WWE likes to do the quote unquote red herring and go the other way. So I have to think it'll be Dominic. Being like, oh, I'll show you, Dad. This is what you taught me, and now we're gonna have a problem. And Steven agreeing as well.
Well, that certainly wasn't all of the pointless things for the night. I also want to point out that we had a match between Omos and Reggie that was about 25 seconds. What can you say about a segment like this? It made Omos look dominant, but we already know that he's a monster and he's dominant. So did any of this segment help anyone?
Nesha, trying to be positive here. Nesha points out Reggie and Dana were backstage before the match. They were the 24/7 group, if you will. It was R-Truth, Akira, and Tamina at this point, and they were kind of eating popcorn, watching in the background. Okay, she says that was funny. I mean, fine, like, cool. I didn't dislike that. It's par for the course, I guess. But yes, Raw 2022, Reggie versus Omos was a match that happened. And yes, we know that Omos is this. He's the Colossus. He's this big dude. Like, if you didn't, like, there's no shadow of a doubt that Omos is gonna win. And then they drew it out for like an extra 5 seconds because the 24/7 crew came out and they all got like tossed in the ring. They had this weird stare down with Tamina and Omos. I'm like, are you trying to tell me that Tamina and Omos is this cool stare? Like, no, okay, stop.
Tamina's only involved in this because she will eventually be the one that takes the title from Dana, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And almost won. Like, once he kind of cleared the ring of everyone else, probably like 10 seconds.
So to talk about a little bit of the positives and about him in general, he deserves to have a solid, dominant showing in the Royal Rumble.
I have to think he will. Yeah.
Similar to what Brock Lesnar had a few years ago whenever he was with Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre and all that stuff, and he was like 1 through 15 just dominating everybody. Omos needs something like that because if he's going to continue to be booked like this, we haven't really seen somebody be booked this dominant that's not just like irrelevant for a long time. Like, he is winning matches, he's looking good. Now, of course, Karrion Kross did this for a little bit and then he went bye-bye. So let's hope that it's not a repeat of that. But he reminds me, like, I don't know. To me, he's like the perfect candidate to defeat Damien Priest at WrestleMania for the title. And I'll let you give your thoughts, but then I want to segue that into talking about Damien Priest, who I believe tonight suffered his first pinfall loss on the main roster.
At least in a singles match, I believe.
Yes.
Because there's one point Miz pinned him when one didn't have pants on, and I think that was a handicap match. But
Yeah.
For Omos, Brian's saying he'll have like a Kane kind of performance, eliminate the most people in the Rumble. I would think that's a fair prediction. I mean, he's a monster. He's the biggest dude that's going to be in the match. Eddie's more specifically saying that Omos will eliminate 8 to 10 people. Maybe then you'll have like 3 or 4 team up. Sounds about right. Michael, I mean, anything can happen here. Saying maybe we'll get Braun Strowman coming back just to face Omos. I mean, at the time, part of the narrative around Braun getting released was the fact that at least the speculation or connecting the dots, like maybe there was a feeling that they didn't need someone as expensive as Braun because they had Omos. Maybe that's not confirmed. Obviously, that's kind of people kind of predicting why things happened, and I think it's possible. Again, Omos could break the record for most eliminations. They're going to want, I would imagine, they want him to look impressive. Something that would not look impressive. Nash pointing out, like, would give him a title would be him beating Dana Brooke for the 24/7 title. Keep him far away from that. I don't think that would do him any favor at this point. So yeah, I'm sure he'll have a good performance. If they want to, they could push him to beat Priest, but at this point, I don't know how much that will even help him because, as you said, John, got to talk about Damien Priest. Damien supposedly got the rub from Edge tonight because he was backstage. Edge even gave the rub to Dana Brooke, or I guess Edge and Beth. We're talking to Dana Brooke and Reggie, and Edge wisely told Reggie, like, no, you don't have a chance in hell against Omos, but do your best, kid. And Beth, pulled Dana aside and was like, good job for sticking out and winning a title. Good moment for her. That's fine. But then Damien kind of lurking in the background And he tells Edge says, "Oh, I've seen your dark side lately." And Damien quipped, "Oh yeah, I guess you could say I'm a little edgy." Humor, John. Jeez. And then Damien was like, "Yeah, I got a dark side, and I can't always contain it." And I tweeted about this. I was like, "This is like those cringy teenagers in high school that have like, I guess not to be redundant, but a dark side or have like anger problems, and they think it makes them cool. So they're like, oh yeah, like I got this dark side, like I'm all bad or whatever." And it's like that's not cool. Like that's not like who would go around talking about the dark side? You wouldn't be proud of it. But then he said, trying to remember. Oh, then he bumped into Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens came up, I think, after Edge left, and he was like, I tweeted, he was like, "If you don't want to see my inner damage tonight, you better not wake him up." I'm like, who writes this crap? Like, there was a solid chunk of time, no more than 4 months ago, when Priest was, I tweeted about it. We somewhat disagreed. I tweeted that he was one of the best parts of Raw. You tweeted you may have disagreed with that. I'm saying yet again, the bar is very low. So to say that he's one of the best parts of Raw really isn't saying much, but I was saying I guess implying he was booked well, he was winning matches, he was looking good, he was a champion, picking up wins, very, very fundamental, basic things that would, in theory, sell them to success. Then out of the blue, they strap him with this, I don't want to say split personality thing, but like this demonic, like good and evil thing that like if he triggers inner Damien, then he loses control and he gets DQ'd all the time, and it's a thing and he can't contain it. And yes, he got pinned. He had a good match with Kevin Owens. That was a weird promo. Owens seemed like awkward, and I'm not sure what they were doing. And then we'll talk about what Owens wound up doing. But for the match itself, Owens pinned Priest. No questions asked. Like just pinned him in a hard fought match. It was good. And we got a comment earlier from Steven saying Owens could win the U.S. title. Now we'll talk about Kevin Owens here, but yes, it is worth pointing out Owens did pin Damien Priest, which has been very rare. I should mention, yes, Owens played possum. He pretended to hurt his leg, so it was put a little asterisk next to it. It wasn't clean as a whistle, but he still pinned him again, which is very rare for Priest here. And this is definitely a rare case where I'm perfectly okay with the champion getting pinned because Owens needed this very, very much because he's been taking a lot of L's lately, or at least on TV, and B, again, Priest, like, I don't know, man. I don't think he's definitely not at the point where he needs to be like protected at all costs and never take losses. And I'm not going to like catastrophize and say like, oh, he lost here, therefore like they're giving up on him. I'm not saying that at all. But maybe he's not like being slotted as the next top guy anymore. And I would say that's probably the right call. My 2 cents.
Well, I'll tell you this about it. I don't understand that they kind of without really, because like if he's gonna lose a match clean, there should be like something behind it. This was kind of like a random match they put together. If Owens and Rollins are both going to be respective U.S. and Universal champions, I think it would provide exceptional entertainment on Raw, especially if they happen to be on the same page. Of course, looking at the two main title pictures right now with Lesnar, Lashley, and then Reigns and Rollins, it's impossible to tell who's going to come out of the Rumble as the winner and who's going to be on which brand after that's over. Like, who's going to be on Raw? Is it going to be Rollins? Is it going to be Lesnar? Who's going to be on SmackDown? Is it going to be Reigns? Like, who knows?
Well, Rollins did say, we'll talk like a perfect segue, that we did have Owens out in the ring. Before this match, he had Rollins down for the Kevin Owens show, talking about the Rumble, talking about their friendship, talking about their goals. And Rollins did say that if he does, well, he said when he wins, when he beats Reigns at the Rumble, that he will stay on Raw, that he will bring the title back to Raw, that he will change the title back to the red straps and just as it used to be. In theory, if that happens, if something crazy happens, then Lesnar could move to SmackDown because he is technically a free agent, at least in universe. So that's one possibility. I have to think that they're doing something with Owens and Rollins here, as you said, John. Maybe that could be that they both want to be the champions, and I think that would be fun, having them kind of as this like unofficial 2-man power trip kind of thing, where like they're the champions and they're kind of running things, and then they eventually split up and they do the classic Owens Jericho Festival of Friendship. I've been seeing that a lot lately. I'm sure that's probably, if they stick it out, going to happen at some point. But there was one line, and a lot of people picked up on this, where Owens called Rollins his best friend. And a lot of people were like, Owens is turning on him at the Rumble, and we're going to go with the feud right away, and we're not going to see any of this. And then there's the flip side. The flip side was, I thought there's a little part of me was like, if Rollins does win, I think it'd be interesting if, again, Owens' whole character at this point is that he can't be trusted. So then he could still turn on Rollins, and because he wants the title, because Owens even said when he kind of pushed Rollins. So when Rollins said, "Oh yeah, I'll stay on Raw," and he's like, "Oh, you're going to stay on Raw with the title?" And kind of implying like, that he would make a play for it because that's what he does. So maybe he'll turn on him after the fact. And then there's something interesting. Again, we always talk about long-term booking. Owens and Rollins had a lengthy feud 2 years ago, WrestleMania 36. This year will be 2 years for WrestleMania 36. They're ignoring that conveniently, but that could kind of come into play here, where maybe in a double twist, he could be like, "Oh, I didn't like you all along. I've been playing you all along," or whatever. They have options here. I think it's interesting you mentioned that it is hard to call. People seem split. A lot of people think that Rollins is going to win. I can't. Again, Reigns beat Cena and Lesnar and Edge and Daniel Bryan and Owens and all these people, and to have it end with Rollins, no knock on Rollins at all, but I just don't know if that's it.
Good point, I guess, but I think the positive thing in the end is no matter what, it's unpredictable.
That it is, and that's like I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. They have options, and I think that one of them could be very, very good for the road ahead. Looking forward to WrestleMania. Speaking of which, plenty of other things to dig into here. One of the good things that people seem to like about the show was the Alpha Academy graduation ceremony coming off of last week, where yes, Alpha Academy, Chad Gable and Otis won the Raw Tag Team title. I'm trying to find the comment. Yeah, DJ saying that it was good. They announced this, I think, shortly, maybe before the show, or they at the very least had like a little screen of it earlier on the show. So Gable and Otis come out. They're wearing caps and gowns. Fittingly colored for red for Raw, and Gable gives kind of his graduation speech, and the fans are booing it, and he says, "Don't boo education, that's gross." That's such a great line. It's like, oh man. And he's praising Otis. He's like, "My number one guy, my store people, Otis," and he kisses him on the cheek. And it's fun. I liked it. I think Gable's doing great with this. I'm very, very glad Gable's finally getting a sustained run, at least in the spotlight here. He's a tag team champion. Good for him. God, Otis has a title now. It's the first for him, other than Money in the Bank, obviously, his first championship title. But then, yes, Riddle came out wearing a green cap and gown. Apparently, John, Riddle doesn't know what rematch means, even though he's on Raw, the land of rematches, comedy. And this sets up, the challenge for an academic, not decathlon, but an academic contest of sorts.
Otis' reaction was not very pleasant to that.
Yeah, that's pointing out Otis's eyes when Riddle came out, and when Chad Gable laid down the challenge for said academic challenge, because Otis knows, like, that's not his forte. Now, granted, I think it might be kind of a net zero, because you've got Riddle and Otis, and the whole point. So Riddle doesn't know what a rematch is. And Otis is the guy that, when he was first on the main roster, was making smoothies with like meat, and he was eating ham, and he was doing stuff.
Turkey legs.
Yeah, he's not exactly the brains of the operation here, based on what we're seeing character wise. But then you got Randy Orton, I would imagine, a very smart man, and obviously Master Gable, the 4.0 student, or graduate, I should say. So we do know next week it will be the academic challenge. I instantly thought of the pandemic era Street Profits and Viking Raiders sports contest cinematic stuff. Like, this feels like an indirect sequel, or I don't know if tribute's the right word, but kind of a callback to that, oddly enough. But because it's an academic thing, they could do it in the ring, have like a chalkboard or something. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fun. Like, they announced the graduation thing. I thought that's kind of cool. But I think, hey, if Riddle he who does not know what a rematch is costs RK Bro this academic challenge. I think Randy might have a problem with that. And that could be kind of maybe one of the final straws that breaks the camel's back with Steven Chambers saying, please put RK Bro. And I do think that this could be kind of one of, or this next week will be the last show before Rumble. So then if Riddle doesn't hold up his end of the bargain here, Randy could be frustrated with Rumble. And whether either he takes it out on Riddle and Rumble or something goes sideways and Riddle accidentally eliminates him or something. I do think that's where we're going, and we're going to get there anyway. But I'm sure it'll be fun. There'll be plenty of jokes and good times to be had by all. But John, what do you think about?
I think it's going to be really good and entertaining, and it's going to be hard to flop on this one. They would really have to try to screw this up for it to go wrong, and I have the utmost faith that this will lead to. And like we originally thought at the Rumble that we were going to get like them both in the Rumble and then turning on each other there. At this point, it appears we're just going to get a 2-on-2 rematch for the tag titles, and then maybe something goes wrong there. So
maybe
I don't know.
It's possible, but then maybe they have a rematch, they lose, and then at the Rumble, then they still. I still think we're going to see that. I predicting that as well. Seeing this kind of some kind of accidental elimination on Riddle's part that kind of starts the official the breakup. But Nasha is saying, hey, like what if she doesn't want to split? What if they don't break up? The money's in them breaking up. This is what they do. The story's there. And as you said, John, with the academic challenge, you have to like work hard to screw this up. This has been in the works for months now. It's right there for the taking. Just do it. Just do
They should just do Wheel of Fortune like
Riddle wanted.
And then you actually have Pat Sajak and Vanna White come in and do it.
You mentioned, I think you mentioned Otis' lunchbox a minute ago. National pointed out Otis needs to bring that lunchbox back. I really wanted Otis to say like his classic, "Oh yeah," kind of line during the graduation, like he did it, yeah. Like I don't know, that would have like really made me very happy. He didn't do it, but alas, I can dream. DJ pointed out they're still selling the merch, so they won't break up until the breakup actually happens, and probably will happen. They'll still be selling it that very night. Until it happens, they're going to keep selling. They're going to milk that cash cow as long as they possibly can, and until it dries up, as they sometimes do, or until they decide to stop milking it and focus on the individual cows in that sense. But no, you look forward here with what could happen after that. Steven's saying maybe Orton. He's saying Orton needs a title push. I was doing some research earlier today. Orton is currently tied with Triple H, tied for third. I guess Cena and Flair are tied at the top of the leaderboard, and then it's Orton and Triple H tied for all-time world title reigns. So I got to think at some point, I think Orton might win and get that tiebreaker there. That's at some point. He's still going. He has not slowed down, so I'm sure that he'll do just fine there. I like this pitch we cover NXT. I like this pitch from Brian saying they could bring Andre Chase into the mix for Alpha Academy. I think that'd be really, really fun. Alpha Academy, Andre Chase, Chase University. There's something there. I like that. That's a good one. Maybe he'll transfer or get a new job. Leaving Andre Chase. We got DJ Tessier in all caps saying get rid of Nikki ASH, bring back the old Nikki Cross. So let's just dive right in here, John. 1 week after the questionably executed split of Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley, we had 2 video packages. We had a Nikki ASH promo, we had a Rhea Ripley promo, and a last minute advertised match of Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley. Nikki saying that no, she's not the villain of this story. It was Rhea Ripley, because Rhea's the one that broke up the team. Rhea was the bad friend. Rhea was one that caused all this. She's still the almost superhero. And then John, she said Rhea is gonna need a superhero whether she wants one or not. And I said, wait a minute, Nikki's not a superhero. She's almost a superhero. That's the whole point. That's the whole thing. What are we doing? Like, what? She's not a superhero. Alas, semantics. And then Rhea said, "I've got to remind everybody, including Rhea Ripley, who I am." And lo and behold, before we go to commercial, we see the graphic. 1 week after the split, Nikki, Rhea in the singles match. And my thought is like, why would you not draw this out? They tried to like cram like probably at least 2 weeks to build here. We got 2 interviews, and then obviously the 2 video packages here. I thought they could have at least drawn out for another week. Probably longer would have been better. And then, of course, yes, we come back for commercial. Time for the match. Queen Zelina and Carmella The only remaining tag team in the women's tag team division, they're the champions, remind you, that they come out and say, and my thought is like, what are they doing? Like, why do they care? Like, they broke up, like they're not a team anymore. And then they just wanted to brag, like, oh, we were right that Rhea was holding, or I guess that Nikki in this case was holding Rhea down. And then they said, John, oh, Rhea, like you need a tag partner because you don't have the guts to hold the title on your own. John, she did. Like, she held the title on her own. She beat Charlotte Flair. What?
So there was no match here, of course, but I think this segment worked to solidify Nikki as the heel in the situation. Nothing special. Nikki sold the intensity of the attacks well. Rhea was laying there. Not a whole lot to say. I don't know. There, like you said, there's no other teams right now. I can't even think of like
There's nobody.
Who else would they form? Like, there's nobody.
Yeah, you can't even just blame it on the tag division at this point because even if you try to think of like people they could just randomly throw together, they don't have a lot of depth in the first place. You know, they've got on Raw Doudrop, now challenging for the Roman title, Liv Morgan, Becky Lynch, Tamina, was used like on the periphery in the 24/7 thing. That's really about it. On SmackDown, things are not much better at all. Charlotte Flair doesn't even have a feud at this point. And obviously you could think of NXT call-ups, but you know, that's
Aaliyah, Natalia.
Don't even get me started about the 3-second match on SmackDown. My gosh.
There are no other females I could think of at this time, which is why Mickie James is in the Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, and then Eddie pointing out, think of NXT stars, maybe Raquel on the women's side. I've got to think they need somebody. Raquel Gonzalez has done all in NXT. Past time for her to come up. I got to imagine that's going to happen. They've got slightly on SmackDown. Lawyer Rock pointing that out. They have people. They're just not really building them up at all. So now we're stuck here where it's like, yeah, we have no idea how they could get out of this. Steven Chambers, I hate to say it, but you know, if they want, like, we know the Bellas are coming back for the Rumble. I feel like there is something to be said for maybe at WrestleMania they win the titles and then they decide to just do away with them and say like, all right, it's been fun, it's been real, it's been I think 3 years as of this WrestleMania, and just kind of realize it's not really working. Currently they still do have the NXT women's tag titles as well. That's part of the problem because for a brief time the champions could go across all three brands. No longer the case. Michael was saying for NXT call-ups, you do have Dakota Kai, Io Shirai. Michael was saying we haven't even seen Xia Li or Shotzi on TV in weeks. It's true. Yikes! Oh boy! But yeah, they've got people. They're just not using them. Or actually, they've got some people. They're just not using them, and that's part of the problem here. Now we talked about the Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens stuff. We talked about Priest. Talked about Alpha. One thing we did not touch on. Oh boy, John, we had Vince McMahon on TV tonight once again, blessing us with his presence. And 2 days after WWE released a statement bashing AEW for the bloody street fight where several of the women's competitors, including Penelope Ford, the Bunny, Tay Conti, and Anna Jay, were bleeding profusely, and they called it. They just lambasted this brutal display of brutality. It was horrible. How could they do such a thing, John? Oh, but it's so bad. But then Vince McMahon, the chairman of this company, threatens to beat Austin Theory with a bat and dismember him and brutalize him and send a selfie to his own mother. Something doesn't matter here, John.
It's different. It's different because it's different. What words compared to actions are different. Actually seeing it happening with your own eyes in the ring is different than saying what I'm going to do.
To be fair, though,
this was by design too. I completely think Vince did this by design as well. I think he knew what he was doing. I do.
Of course, but like to me, that's even worse because like he's the chairman of the company, he's doing that, and okay. You know what? I don't. Fine, we'll agree to disagree on that one.
I'm still hoping this leads to Shane McMahon coming back somehow.
Could happen. I think there's a story we told there, but we saw this. He told us in theory, hey, you've got a rematch with Finn Balor. This is Finn's first time on TV, I think, since probably the middle of last month or so. It's been like a couple weeks because Theory attacked him. It's fine. And McMahon said, yeah, if you lose, I will beat you up. I'll take a selfie and I'll send it to your own mother. Fine. I'm not going to dig into that too much. We'll agree to disagree on that one. But and then I'm watching this match and I'm like, all right, I want to see Austin Theory lose. I want to see them do this. I want to see Vince McMahon beat this man up and send a selfie to his mother and be this horrible person and do that and see what happens there, because I think that'd be interesting. No, Austin Theory won, and that's fine. Well, all right. Good for Austin Theory. Bad for Finn Balor. Again, I look at Finn Balor at this point. I'm like, what are we doing? This man is former Universal Champion. He's challenged for Universal title Extreme Rules. He is, by all rights, a top star. A lot of people like him. He was former two-time NXT champion. Had a great run in NXT. Reports for months were like, oh, the Raw writers were begging him to come to get Finn Balor on Raw, and this is what we get. Steve Chambers saying he's a Finn Balor fan. Can't believe Finn got pinned clean. Don't know next for Finn. I have no idea what's next for Finn. I mean,
he's going to NXT.
But those days are gone, John. Like if anything, look at the AJ Styles. You're down for like 1 week for a confrontation, another week for a match. Then you're not going to see people go down for these sustained runs. I have to think. It's not that day anymore. So then, not even more. Then I'm like, what are we even doing here? Next match, wanted Theory to lose. Yeah, I think that would have been more interesting here. But no, I feel for Finn Balor in this case. I'm a big fan of his as well. I don't know where it's going. It's helping Theory in the sense it's giving him wins over a top star here. Or again, someone who I still kind of view as one of the top stars, who has a track record of a top star, just not handled like one. For a good match, at least, yeah. Just saying that AJ and Finn would be something we could see on Raw. They're both on Raw. That would be a great match, but Finn's been mishandled, and I think that would not be as good as it could have been. It's just a shame. Like, yeah, he's probably at this point one of the biggest examples of like people I think are getting misused here. But no, Austin Theory is clearly on the rise here. I just think he's the new Vince McMahon guy. That is very, very clear. He's been on TV with a guy with Vince McMahon himself pretty much every week that Vince has been on, dating back to Survivor Series. So like that means something. And the fact they're just working together and it's part of the storyline. I think we talked about it last week. Someone had predicted that Austin will be like the Iron Man of the Rumble. I think he'll have a good performance. I don't know where it's going to go, but yeah, he seems to be the new chosen one, and I still think he might be the guy that beats Priest at some point. And that's not good for him. I think he's doing very well with this kind of. They give him the ball, and he's running with it. I think that's a very good thing. So I can't really complain about that. We're getting some comments about Mustafa Ali's release. No, he's not been released. Disclaimer: he requested his release yesterday on Sunday. The reports spoke about that because he tweeted. He literally tweeted, "I've asked my release." And then we had some more details reported about that from Fightful. So go check that out. But we wrote it up as well. But it's using Fightful as a source. There were some reports about what went into that. Not official as far as we know. We have not heard any updates or anything like that. Just the fact that he requested his release. We don't know anything about what's going on there. But as soon as we know more, we'll report that. But as of right now, he requested his release. We've seen this before. People have asked for releases and not gotten them. I have to think it's going to be like Tony Storm. If you're going to tell me they're going to release dozens and dozens of people and then not let someone go willingly, that is a horrible, horrible look. So they let Tony Storm go when she asked for it. I have to think, as far as we know, hasn't happened yet. But I have to think that they're going to let him go because he wants to go. Like they can't pop. Like at least me looking at it from the far outside, I'm just thinking logically, like that would not make any sense.
Nope, they're gonna sit in a room, they're gonna talk it out, and Ali is going to win the Royal Rumble. It's all work. It's all a work, and then he wins the Royal Rumble.
Like the Cody Rhodes stuff.
And then he's gonna have another match against Mansoor in Saudi Arabia for Elimination Chamber. But here's the thing: he's gonna win the Rumble. And he's going to have to put his Royal Rumble winning spot on the line. And then Mansoor is going to beat him in Saudi Arabia. And then Mansoor is going to main event WrestleMania.
Perfect. Right.
Which they're gonna have to move that to Saudi Arabia because they don't want to see it over here.
Goodness gracious. DJ pointing out, part of the report was that something happened between Mustafa Ali and Vince reportedly. There may have been some disagreement about creative. I don't know exactly what that was. I don't want to speculate about what that situation was because I don't know. Don't want to put anything false out there. I just know I've heard the report that there may have been some disagreement, and that's all there is that we know about it. But that being said, lastly here, as far as I can really tell, okay. We had a segment about Edge and Maurice. Beth Phoenix got hit with a brick. I don't know why I laughed. Maurice brings out she hits Beth with a purse, and she exits with Miz. She pulls out a brick. I'm like, this hit her with a brick on national TV. And then 2 minutes later, she's telling Miz, "Oh, don't curse because your kids watching at home." They just watched their mom hit this other woman with a brick in the head. So I thought that just kind of came off kind of funny. My biggest takeaway: two things here. This feud should be really, really cool, and it hasn't really been. The initial Edge and Miz thing was kind of cool, and then that kind of lost its luster. Beth comes back, got a brief kind of surge from that, and ever since Maurice not wanting to wrestle here, and I don't know, she's trying to back out of the match tonight. She was trying to get Beth to be like, "Hey, let's be friends. Let's have our kids go on a play date," and Beth is thankfully actually smart for a minute. She said, "No, you're just trying to you're a liar." And she insulted him his acting skills, and then she's like, "Oh, but I want to fight you, so let's give the fans a preview of the Royal Rumble tonight." She goes to the ring, and then the Miz attacks Edge, and I'm like, you had to know that Miz was gonna Maurice said, obviously Maurice of high honor said, "Oh, Miz is not here tonight, so don't worry about that." Come on. You knew the Miz was somewhere. This was a trap. Classic Star Wars line. It's a trap. It's a trap. Don't fall for this stuff. They booked the babyfaces so badly. Again, Beth had one little moment of logic and reasoning, and then that's out the window. And then Miz and Maurice get the upper hand. And next week, Miz is throwing Maurice a birthday party. They announced 3 segments for next week, and none of them are wrestling matches because this is not a wrestling show. We're going to get Maurice's birthday party. We're going to get the championship weigh-in for Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. And, of course, the Alpha Academy Academic Challenge. And I'm sure that will be fun. But I don't know. Are you enjoying the build here for this mixed tag match before we dive into the main event and get out of here?
I don't really have a whole lot to add. It should be a decent match. I think the build has been pretty good for what we've seen so far.
I just thought one better. I thought it's this cool this mixed tag between Edge and Miz, two kind of top former champions here, and then obviously Beth and Maurice upon history. I just felt like they could have been kind of fun, or more meaningful, more special, and they're just doing this kind of typical, ordinary stuff. And again, I feel like a lot of time Edge has done things throughout this run. It's like that he doesn't exactly follow the typical the templates. He's not the stereotypical babyface, or he's been a babyface, but he does things a little more different, a little more interesting. He brings the Brood character back. He does this, that, other thing. This is very, very just copy and paste, ordinary. I wanted better. It's unfortunate. Maybe we'll they'll do something fun next week. At the very least, Steven saying maybe someone will get cake in the face next week. That'd at least be kind of fun. All right. But with that being said, last up here, main event. Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins. Good match. Rollins and Lashley. They're both great. They'll both be challenging for their respective titles of the Royal Rumble. But then you kind of knew neither one could really take the fall here. You can't have Lashley actually lose because he's facing Brock Lesnar. You can't have Rollins actually lose. He's facing Roman Reigns. So what do, John? You literally recreate to a T as they already did the initial split of the Hurt Business. They had the Hurt Business come out and attack Lashley, which is exactly what they did when the Hurt Business broke up the first time, and then they reunited and did absolutely nothing with them. So Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin come out. They attack Lashley. Match ends in a DQ because of course it does. Then Lashley's like, "Oh, no problem, dude. He just dominates him anyway." So next or we know that we'll see the weigh-in next week. I have to imagine maybe not next week. If I had to guess it, maybe 2 weeks. Handicap match, Lashley versus Cedric and Shelton. Gonna happen. I feel it in my bones. And if that wasn't great, and then the Usos come out and they attack Rollins, so at least that's like something kind of interesting. Like, all right, there you go. At least that's like something. But then obviously then the brand split's dead because they're on Raw and nothing matters, and like the boundaries of Raw and SmackDown are non-existent, and again leading many people to wonder what's next in that regard. But that was Raw. DQ main event.
I thought the main event was pretty good. Just the match itself, the Spear through the barricade, the ending there. Probably a handicap match, I'd say you're right. But I mean, by looking at the show from an overall standpoint, I would probably I don't know if I'd go 7. I'd probably say 6.7. What about you?
Well, we're getting a 7 from Brad. You're giving a 6.7. Man. All right. I'll try and go generous with a 6.2. I was not feeling it tonight. Again, probably about 10 minutes in. Nesha giving it a 7 as well. DJ down with a 4.5. Steven with 6.5. Seems to be like I feel like we're roughly in this range pretty consistently here now. Again, it's a sign of the times here. Laura with a 6.9. About roughly average. Nando with a 6.2. Geese out of 10. Goose. Oh, we love you, Nando. Never change. But again, we're riding in the Royal Rumble. I myself want better than this. Like, it's one of the biggest shows of the year. This supposedly is, if not already, coming out day one. Road to WrestleMania, Royal Rumble will kickstart the Road to WrestleMania. This is the time to get things going. And I don't want to keep saying, okay, it'll be better next week or it'll be better at the Royal Rumble. I hope. But Kevin's saying a 5.7. So again, pretty low numbers here. I hope it'll be better. It's now officially Tuesday. So tonight, John, you and I will be we'll be doing the NXT show as always. And with that in mind, DJ is pointing out that yes, we will. They announced during the show that we're going to see a pretty fun match on NXT. It's going to be Walter, the longest reigning NXT UK champion. Yes, he's as far as we know, he had his quote unquote last stand on NXT UK. And now he's on NXT, at least in this match. And he'll be facing Roderick Strong. So I think that will be a very fun match. We saw over the weekend there was a digital exclusive where Walter almost shoved Malcolm Bivens into a locker. Kind of set things up here. I'm sure this will be a very, very good match. Looking forward to it. What comes of it? I mean, even though they're both heels, I think Imperium versus Diamond could be pretty cool. I think that's kind of something. You got Strong and the Creed brothers versus Walter and the Imperium. I think that's kind of cool. We do know they announced the Men's Dusty Classic bracket. Pretty weak. We can talk about that tonight on the NXT show, but that'll be starting. Is that starting this week?
Next week, I believe.
Okay. Well, they announced the bracket. We can talk about that. That's coming up. And otherwise, obviously, NXT rolls on, Raw rolls on, we keep rolling on to the Rumble, and we're covering it all. We cover Raw here on Monday nights, you and I, John. We cover NXT on Tuesdays. We cover Steven. No, I can wait for Von Wagner tomorrow, my friend. Again, they tease me by teasing that he'll be suspended, and then they rip that away. He will likely be on NXT tomorrow or tonight, I should say. So not
get the toaster ready.
Oh, John. See, I wouldn't go that far, but shows like tonight, not too far from it. But obviously, we're covering all that stuff. None is asking us to fantasy book Royal Rumble. If it were up to me, if I had the pencil, I'd say make it crazy, make it weird, make it fun, bring in all the crazy stuff. I don't know if they could. It'd be cool to have Chris Jericho pop up or whatever, or to have them collaborate with the companies and do all these fun things. I don't think they're going to though. So I don't want. Again, we full circle. I don't want to set the bar too high. So I'm lowering the bar. It's I'm staying pretty much well within the realm of what they got. And that would be an NXT. So I'd say Raquel for the women, just to have her in the match, and then have maybe Ciampa and stuff. But we'll talk about that again next week. That could be a whole nother half hour here, and we're already running way late. So with that being said, we'll talk about all that stuff. We'll do a nice preview for the show for the Rumble next week and beyond. But But as always, guys, we appreciate you so much. And before I go into the ending spiel, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. All these shows, Raw, NXT, when we can. Robert and I do the SmackDown show, schedule permitting. I try to cover GCW, so there's often a schedule conflict when there's a show on that end, but we do what we can. We try our best. And that being said, otherwise, Dominic and Marcus, the two Dynamite Dudes on the Red page, cover all things AEW, so make sure to follow them. And we've got a great stream of interviews constantly coming to you guys. I have recently interviewed Matt Cardona, former Ring of Honor manager / wrestler, or personality, Amy Rose. Bill Pierce recently interviewed Moose, the Impact World Champion. All these things and more are available. So that being said, Nando, we appreciate you so much. He's saying he's given us a 10 out of 10. Shucky ducky quack quack or quake quake. Nando, we love you. We appreciate you. So that being, he's saying it was a typo. Well, that being said, we appreciate you guys so much. It's we've gone over an hour talking about Raw that I didn't even think was that good. But we talked about other things. We went on tangents. We talked about all these things because you guys are asking questions and we get sidetracked. But we try our best to have a good time with it. DJ, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I got to interview Matt Cardona, my favorite wrestler, for the second time in December. And with that one up, I think that was right around the new year. My favorite interview I've ever done. So if you have not checked it out, I definitely recommend it. But with that being said, we appreciate you all so much for taking the time to listen to us, to hang out with us, to talk about Raw, whether it's good, bad, or anywhere in between. We'll be back here for NXT. And with that being said, yet again, the world remains a scary place, but we try to do one thing, but we try to just escape all the bad stuff to the extent we can, to come here and talk about Raw, just playing bad stuff of its own in a different way. But everywhere between, we try to do one thing above all this, John. Can you tell me what that is?
Enjoy wrestling. Bye.
Indeed. Thanks for listening, everybody.